Welcome to our first video lesson on geometry, and we're going to start geometry with thinking about something called discrete geometry. So when we think about geometry, we can think about a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different ways to think about geometry. So we're going to start off by kind of looking at a couple of different ways to do that. So let me go and make this a slideshow so we can maybe see it a little bit better. So in discrete geometry, this is what kind of become a little more important in the recent years because it is about the digital world. So a point in discrete geometry is thought of as being a dot or like a pixel on a digital picture or a TV screen. And let me put a couple of things on here. So a point is also the dot, and it takes up space. It takes up space. So it has some physical space to it. That didn't come out very well. But when we think about our theoretical geometry that we're going to be studying most of the time, our points will not take up space. So when we think of a line, we're going to think of like a row of dots. So if I have like some dots, that's not a very straight line. We'll talk more about that later, but that is when we think about it, a line. So let's go back and clear that off. Okay. So when we think about a digital camera or a TV screen, these are made up of tiny dots. So maybe you know this, maybe you don't. But like a TV screen or a camera will have a certain number of megapixels. So I was just looking at my camera on my phone, and I can take a picture that is up to 12 megapixels, which is about 12 million pixels or 12 million of those dots. The screen that it would create is 4,032 pixels one way by 3,024 pixels going in the other direction. So if I multiply those out, I get a little over 12 million pixels or dots on the screen. So the 12 megapixels is an approximation. They don't necessarily give us exactly the number. They're not going to tell us, it's 12,192,768 dots on there. So let's go here. So again, when we think about lines, one thing I want to kind of talk about here is the vertical, horizontal, and oblique lines. So a vertical line, when we're talking about discrete geometry, I'll do the best I can here, is going to be a row of dots that goes straight up and down. Okay. A horizontal line in discrete geometry are going to be dots that go straight across. Those are not very perfect, but get you the idea. An oblique line is going to be anything else. Okay. An oblique line is often called a diagonal line. In geometry terms, we're going to call it oblique, but it's the same idea there. So we're also going to do a little bit of algebra review as we get started in geometry. So in this lesson, I'm going to do a couple of algebra problems kind of as review. So we're going to solve a two-step equation here, 3x minus 8 equals 13. I'm not sure exactly, maybe you remember this, maybe you don't remember it. Maybe you're like, I've never done this before. We'll see what happens. So on the 3x minus 8, we do the opposite operation, or what we call the inverse operation, to both sides. We're going to do the inverse operation to both sides of the equation. My pen is not working very well here. Okay, so, and we typically will start with we go in opposite order of operations. So we're going to start with the 8. The 8 is being subtracted. So I'm going to add 8, and I add 8 to both sides. So adding 8 and subtracting 8 cancel each other out. So those two are going to basically cancel each other out, leaving us with just our 3x. And on the other side, we're going to add those numbers together. 13 plus 8 gives me 21. So 3x means 3 times x. So now we're going to go ahead and divide that by 3. We do because the opposite of multiplication, or the inverse operation, is division. So our x equals 7. Okay, so there's, hopefully you had a chance. I would like for you to kind of take some notes on these and write some of these examples down and the information that I provided for you. It will help you to be able to answer the questions and go from there. So let's clear the screen off. Go to the next. Yeah, here's our next problem. And so on this problem, we have variables on both sides of the equation. I typically instruct and say, let's keep the x term positive when we combine them and combine our like terms. So in this case, I'm going to start by subtracting 2x from both sides. That's going to leave on the left side, again, be careful here, that's a negative 9. Minus 9 is the same thing as negative 9. 6x minus 2x gives me 4x. Minus 25 is still there. So now it looks fairly similar to the last equation. The variable's on the right side, but we're going to isolate the variable. We've got to get that variable term together, or excuse me, alone. So we're going to add 25 to both sides. So negative 9 plus 25 gives us 16 equals our 4x. So that's multiplication. So we're going to undo that or reverse that by dividing by 4. And our variable answer is 4. So on your practice problems today, you have some discrete geometry questions to answer, and then I've also put on there a couple of algebra reviews. We will need to have our algebra skills as we progress. We will do some algebra, so I don't want you to forget those things as we progress through geometry. So welcome. Hopefully this was a nice lesson, something we learned a little bit. And go ahead and do the assignment and email me if you have any questions. Thanks.